Hello, and welcome to a steely episode of the Drywall Podcast. I am your host, Nick Harmon. With us today, Dan Wessel of Blue Steel Drywall out of Pickering, Ontario. We talk about his unique business name surrounding blue steel knives and also proper care for blue steel knives, but we also talk about knife shape and knife size and the difference between sheetrock brand paddles and level 5 paddles, but we also dive into some of his family history. I didn't know Royce was your dad.
Yeah. Honestly, I do get that a lot, and we'll be on site or whatever, and okay, son, and then next thing you know, somebody will go, "That's your kid?" I'm like, and I'm like, yeah. So, I mean, he started young. He started out as a ticketed painter by the time he was 14 years old.
We talk about Royce's involvement with the three-way, and we also talk about the three-way tool and working with his family. We discuss the fleeting aspects of life, but we also talk about starting your own business, all packed into this episode. Who is this episode brought to you by, you might wonder to yourself? Well, I'm glad you're thinking that way because I'm going to tell you who this episode is brought to you by. It happens to be our good friends at Columbia Tools. This is the second time they've sponsored the Drywall Podcast, and I think they're awesome for doing that. Stay tuned throughout February for one more ice bath giveaway, and that was going to culminate into a Rocky Mountain adventure. That adventure has now been pushed back to April, so stay tuned for more details on that. We're going to have a bunch of ballers up in Canada doing drywall, kicking ass. We're going to be filming it, and we're going to have a ton of fun. Columbia is going to be right in the middle of it. They are a family-owned and operated business that's been rocking the drywall finishing scene for over 4 decades, if you didn't know. They manufacture commercial tools in Canada using cutting-edge machinery, and they're all North American materials. You can catch my 2-part interview with Aaron and Elliot of Columbia Tools on episodes 23 and 26 of the Drywall Podcast, as well as a live interview with their dad, Bernie St. James, and founder of Columbia Tools on episode 54. That episode is also available for your viewing pleasure on our Instagram page. If you haven't been to our Instagram page, head over there and check it out. Tons of sneak previews and cool stuff to find there. Oh, and also like our page if you are inclined. Without further ado, Dan Wessel on the 84th episode of the Drywall Podcast. Let's get into it. You just do the shit and you can't really care if somebody thinks it's stupid. Like, you can't care what anybody thinks.
You know what? I heard something very interesting the other day, and it's really nice to be afforded this. You know what? You got to think of your expression in life almost as your own personal diary of going through, right? No matter any of our experiences that we're doing. Now, if someone saw a page of your diary and they had an opinion of that, would their opinion really count? No, because this is your expression, your life, and you're bringing the things into your life that you want to. So having the stones and not caring about what other people say and just living your life and having your expression of however that is. Yeah. It's very important.
Dan Wessel, right?
That's right. Wessel. Yes.
Blue Steel Drywall, the Zoolander of the drywall trades. How'd you come up with Blue Steel?
You know what? I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. The story behind that was wanting something rather individual, something individual. I like to make jokes and stuff, do the Zoolander face. Really, honestly.
Okay.
I was trying to think of something that could be like individual, something that somebody remembers or instantly can go, oh, well, I've worked with that guy. I know that name. instead of
Good.
less corporate. And at the same point, I also thought of something like blue steel, kind of like the blue steel knives that we work with, which at the time was my favorite tool to work with.
Mine too.
Doesn't burn anything, flexible, and generally speaking, a really solid, versatile metal to work with for our tools.
Yes,
So
I agree.
I felt like blue steel tools, blue steel drywall was just part of what I really enjoy. It's kind of like, plus I also was like, making jokes like, there's got to be more in life than doing ridiculously good drywall.
That's pretty good.
just that's what I'm here for.
I got the white lung, Pop. I got the white lung.
The white lung, yes, indeed. Oh man, I even thought about doing it working for the weekend while I was sanding away there.
Dude, you absolutely should do a blue steel working for the weekend. If you have not seen Zoolander, I encourage you to watch it. You got Owen Wilson, Ben Stiller. There's some. I mean, Vince Vaughn has a cameo. I don't think Vince Vaughn says one word. He just looks disgusted at his brother the whole time. He's just like,
that's pretty much what it is. Yeah, no. They got the guy in there that was doing the what happened, and then they got the other guy. So Will Ferrell was in there. That was another big name.
Oh yeah, Will Ferrell. He's earlier in his career, and then just a cast of characters in that show. It's pretty funny. That movie, rather, Blue Steel. That didn't occur to me, but I am in the union and throughout with my broad knives. I'm a blue steel guy because I think early on I used a stainless knife and it waved on me. And us drywallers, like that was it. It was like, okay, back to the blue steel. I like how the blue steel holds a nice subtle curve. And that might just be me, but and you got to keep them clean and you got to dry them off. And the dudes in the union would spray them off with like WD. Do you do all that?
So keeping my blades oiled and stuff, yes. If I had to say so, I really do like how that works and keeping them oiled. It's kind of almost like you could almost take it back to Swordcraft and how they used to take care of their tools. Was oiling the blade is a great way to keep it from rusting, as well as it also increases just the life of the blade, because especially along the bottom where the blade meets the control edge, it can rust out there and you can get a pretty decent snap really quickly before even breaking that tool in.
Yeah, I have an old 6-inch, probably 12 years old. Now, the last several years, I haven't used it as much, but it's like my buddy. And you see these videos of these 6 inches snapping right there. And I'm always immediately like, dude, you got to clean that. You got to keep that. That's the only place you have to keep clean, really, on a blade, is that little transition where the handle meets the blade. If you keep that clean and oiled, your knife will last forever. Like those knives will last forever, The
more you keep your the more you keep your tools, they'll keep you. That's what that is.
And especially the 6-inch. Stop me if I'm wrong. It's like it takes a long time to like work in a 6-inch, like get it to be where it's like, your old buddy. And then it's like, oh, that's like familiar friend. I mean, a couple years, like,
you need a couple years at least to work the tool into to get it to a decent point. I think that a lot of companies are trying to give that worked in feel, though. They're really trying to give that with the tools that they're producing, but
it's true. Yeah.
Nothing happens quite the same as if you're sitting there working the tool in. It's like, yeah, it's your best friend. It's there the entire time. It's reliable. And then if that goes, it's like you're losing an old friend. It really is.
Where do you keep your, do you use, so there's some discrepancy between some people use a 4, some people use a 5, some people use a 6. We all have the small knife with us. It seems like that's pretty standard.
Got-
Where do you keep your, what size do you use and where do you keep it? Do you keep it on your side? Do you keep it in the back? How do you do
So
that?
I keep my 5-inch knife on the
Five.
side.
See, you're a
5 inch is
guy.
my go-to. I'm a 5 guy. So
Yeah.
thing is 4, 5, 6 sees an awful lot of play in my work. Like 4, 5, 6. That's what I like. And I like a couple of different 6-inch knives too. Not just so like there's the stainless steel knives that we use, of course, regular design. I use the tapered design, so I don't use the bell shape, right? So there's only a slight difference between them, but how they act inside of the corners or wherever you're working, the characteristics of the knife change completely.
What do you mean a tapered design?
So like there's the bell shape, right? I wish I
Yeah.
brought my knives out. So there's
Okay.
like you get a standard shape knife. It's like this down and it bells in, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So whereas a tapered knife, A. Richard makes these tapered knives and they come out and instead of going down and in, they go backwards towards the blade directly from the
Oh.
point.
Oh, that did never even occurred to me.
Honestly, it's part of my part of training. My dad was I grew up with that.
There
So
you go.
I always stick with the tapered knives, tapered 5 and 6. It's harder to get a tapered 4, but A.
Okay.
Richard does all of the knives in taper. So I really like that.
Yeah, like 3 inches are almost all tapered, right?
Always, yeah. Generally speaking, you don't get a bell on that. And then you get an interesting sort of take on the 3-inch. You can get it straight or you can get it in a sash knife shape. So sash knife or a sash paintbrush is on an angle, right,
Yep.
from the tip.
I like the
And
angle.
that's a versatile little tool. You can use that for
Yeah.
filming.
I like the sash and I like the more flex on the lighter weight knives for sure.
Yeah, because when you're dealing with a thing of weight, when I talk about weight, I'm talking about the size of the blade that's being used, the thickness of the blade. So I like a lightweight blade or a flexible blade because the surface area of the knife is so small, too much pressure, it works.
Yeah.
What happens. And with a flexible blade, it's very easy to finesse that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the sealer with Fresco Harmony, we actually used plastic blades because it's so flexible that it doesn't gouge or cut in. When you reintroduce the moisture of the sealer to the color joint compound, it sort of reactivates the mud, like wet sanding, but with your knife.
I understand.
So you use a plastic blade with the sealer and you can throw them out like whatever. I mean, people might think I'm a hack because I'm using a plastic blade, but it's very strategic. You can cut them down, you can do whatever. But and also the sealer doesn't stick to my blue steel knife. But I also use a 6-inch level 5 blade. They make a really good 6-inch with the red handles. Like I really like those. Those are nice.
It's a good lineup of tools.
Yeah. They don't do everything right, but I also love their mixer, their whip. The level 5 whip is fantastic.
I've had a chance to use all the whips, and honestly, I've centered around using the USG, the sheetrock one.
Yeah.
That's the one that I stick to.
Yeah.
But I can't say anything bad about what Level 5's doing with theirs. I've used a lot of different types of mixers and paddles. I've used advanced. I've used all of them. Yeah. And honestly, the only thing I can say is that the USG whip, the sheetrock whip, is just a little heavier. So it's a big piece of steel you're putting in your pail, but God, the way it throws everything together into the middle of your pail.
Yeah.
With limited amounts of air, it's a big difference.
Yeah, the faster you spin your mud, the better, I've learned. So you want to whip it up quick. Now with the color, I want to whip that up as quick as possible because you can sit there like whipping the shit out of your mud. That sheetrock brand worked. My only criticism was the resistance on the drill. And I actually talked with Scott Murray about the design of the Level 5, and that was a specific part of the design. So, and you can feel it, the torque on your drill, because the paddles are flat versus like, and they both whip about the same. The criticism to the level 5 that I have is that it's really hard to clean, where that sheetrock, you can just brush it off. But that level 5 mixer is like impossible to clean. You have to like get in there with a rag or something and clean it out.
Or have a spray station.
Yeah, or have a spray station. Yeah.
But the thing is sometimes that's ill afforded, because do we have a lot of room sometimes where there's a hose or where there's a this, but you can get like a recirculated. So, but again, tools, it comes down to needing tools for it. But
yeah,
I do know what you mean by having the difficulty to clean the inside of those tools, clean the inside of those paddles, and we want our materials clean. So we do want a mixer that's easy to stay clean. Now, before you get too far on this, I wanted to talk about plastic knives for a minute there.
Sure.
I personally think that plastic knives are a versatile tool, and they're very useful to have in your kit.
Oh, yeah.
And anyone who uses them, I use them for wiping my tapes sometimes. Like, when I was wiping tapes with plastic knives, you're guaranteeing, that if you're putting too much pressure on your blade, there's a bit of forgiveness in that, And it's very interesting how you should note that you're using it on your sealer on top of your material, because your materials underneath that sealer won't bind and pull when you use a plastic knife.
Pulls less. You can still get pullage. But it's
happens too. Well, if it dries out, I would assume as it starts to dry out, you're going to run into that problem.
Yeah, people will be like, I get some pull marks, and sometimes you'll get little pull marks. Now with the color too, you'll see those pull marks. So Jock will get a couple of those where we have to go in and like faux them out with paint. So with the colored mud, you start running into a whole series of other problems, because you're not painting over the surface, you're leaving it done. So you don't want any little blemishes, nothing. Like for instance, too, if I get a little speck of something in the colored mud as I'm sealing, like white, sometimes the sealer will harden and you'll get little white chunks. Like I carry my metal 6-inch on me to pick those out, because if you rub them out with your finger or something, or like you'll see a mark on the wall. So
it'll change the texture of the finish. It will.
You have to be conscious of a lot of other things. Whereas if you're, you can get a black mark on your finished drywall and they'll paint right over it. It doesn't matter. But any marks on your surface with the fresco, you have to be mindful of all of that, especially with a whiter finish. So it's still drywall, but it's just like kind of like another. It introduces this whole other element.
It gets away from being an industry finish into being like a artistic expression, like an artistic finish. It starts to blur the line and gets us guys that are used to doing it for a construction into expressing ourselves in an artistic way.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, it pushes, again, that comfort level where you're doing something new. It's like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. This is like, and I'm always like, well, you do it every day. Of course you can do this. Like it's the same medium you're already using. You're just adding color and doing it in a different way,
So it's a unique product that's great to work with,
We got to back up though. We got to get into some of the history of Dan Wessel. Let me see here. You mentioned that real quick. Your brother works with Sean. Those guys are working together now or something?
Yeah, they're doing really good together too.
Are
they're
they?
producing content. You know what?
Yeah.
I think they're doing very good over there. I'm really happy for my brother, and I'm happy for Sean, because I think that both of them are influencing each other very well. Very positive connection they have there.
Why? How come you and your bro don't work together? WTF?
Different energies, different ways of doing things. I have great
Yeah.
respect for my brother as a tradesman,
Cool.
but we do things and we approach things differently.
Okay.
So both, I honestly feel we're both highly talented,
You're
and it's
with
just,
you being a little better, right? A little, a
you know
little. You're a
what,
little better.
Steve, don't take it personally, man. uh, I think honestly what it comes down to is strengths and weaknesses, Nick, but I have worked with my brother in the past before. But the thing is my trade and the way I've done things, I've always wanted to focus more on the artistic side of things
Okay.
instead of so sometimes I'll take a little longer than some things will warrant. You know what I mean? And that can
Yeah.
be frustrating when you're trying to make so I had some things to learn. I had to learn
Yeah.
to pick up some speed, had to learn to pick up some production instead of, because my background is custom homes, all custom
Okay.
homes right from the get-go. So I'm used to working with small, little, tiny articulations and sanding and sculpting and stuff. And that's just not what we do in subdivision, and that's just not what we do
Yeah.
in areas where we need to make some money. So I think honestly the difference there is just speed and production, which I've picked up a lot more. So we don't
Okay.
really.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say that we don't really work together, not because we can't, but because we have different ideas.
Okay. You're close with your bro though? You guys are buds?
Yeah, I'm good friends with my brother. I haven't you know how life gets. He's got his own family, I've got mine. And but yeah, whenever we're together, it's laughs. So, you know, it's laughs and
Good.
enjoyable
Good.
times. My brother's got a great sense of humor. And
Good.
I really enjoy listening to him on his podcast. He had a really good, solid go during the Christmas holidays. He had like a really cool podcast show that he was inviting people to. And, you know,
Wait. Your brother had a podcast show?
he was doing an
Okay.
advent calendar thing. It was like I don't want to, it might offer him a chance to actually explain and talk about but it was like he was drinking a beer advent calendar and just having a good time
Cool.
with everybody, you know?
Nice. Oh, cool.
And
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's sweet.
yeah, I thought he did a great job with it, inviting family out, talking about things and just talking and just generally keeping things really casual, which is what he's really good at.
Okay. All right.
I can be serious sometimes.
That's okay. That's okay. I can tell that you're I would enjoy working with you. I could tell right away. I'm pretty studious about what I do. I'm clean. I like my mixing area clean, like all that shit. I'm very studious. Some finishers are like that. Some are more messy, you know, willy-nilly. There's no right or wrong way. I like that you mentioned too the production versus custom. Even in production, I think there's no real right or wrong way. I think there's a way to go fast and do a good job. But it's a different type of finishing. And don't look down your nose at production finishers. It's like there's a whole art to that as well.
It's an entirely different system and flow. Those guys have sorted
Yeah,
out a
it's
different
cool.
formula, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So your dad was a drywall finisher. Was he the first drywall finisher in your family?
Yes, and he taught all of us. There were like 5 boys altogether in our family.
Shut up. Do you got 4 bros?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool. It's a big family, all bros. My dad had 2 boys, and we met Royce. I would say I was about 12 and my brother was 10, something like that. And from that point forward, yeah. So my dad was always big on having a trade, having a job, being able to do these things. So we started right out of high school.
Okay, and you're talking about Royce from the Three-Way, right?
Yeah, Royce Three-Way. That's my dad, Royce Lennox. That's
Okay.
his
All
product.
right. Okay, it's all coming together. I didn't know Royce was your dad.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, honestly, I do get that a lot, and we'll be on site or whatever, and okay, son, and then next thing you know, somebody will go, "That's your kid," I'm like, and I'm like, yeah, yeah. So I mean, he started young, 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 young. He started out as a
Yeah.
ticketed painter by the time he was 14 years old.
But great guy, just such a nice fella.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it was really cool. It was an interesting it was an interesting childhood being with him. That's for sure. Out of the box thinker, has a different way of approaching things, and I feel like I definitely benefited from that.
And where do you fall in the five boys? Are you in the middle? Are you youngest, oldest?
Second youngest, my Steve being the youngest, so I don't know. I feel like I'm close enough to be a middle child
Okay.
almost. So I have my eldest brother, um, so my older two brothers, which would be Royce's oldest sons. Those two are really cool. I don't get a chance to talk to one of them as much because he lives out in Saskatchewan, but I
Okay.
saw Trevor not too long ago. Trevor's my other brother. Trevor,
Okay.
and you know what? He was extensive in growing up in teaching me the trade, my brother and I the trade.
Okay.
And so he's always been in our lives, always been around. It's and so other brothers I don't see a lot. My two older brothers, I don't see them. My eldest brother, and then my other brother, his name is Zach. I don't see him very much at all.
I'm getting
So
like a half brother vibe from these
yes, they
guys.
are half brothers. Yes, because they're my dad. So how it works was yeah, my mom met Royce like a long time ago, and he had two boys, three boys,
Okay.
and we came into the family, and we that was about I was 12, so geez, that was a number of years ago, and
Yeah.
then but you know, it was very accepting kind of situation. It was a very open situation from where we came from,
Okay.
and it was a bit to get used to, you
Yeah.
know, bit of culture shock.
Yeah.
So, but at the same point, it was also really cool. It was really, really cool. These are half brothers, but
Is
yeah,
your mom and Royce still together?
yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, they are. And yeah, no, it's so they're home. They have their own house, and everybody's kind of moved on. Um,
So
Trevor's
you might be, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that Trevor, every now and again, he's living a great life, comes down and sees us, and we get a chance to work with him.
Cool.
That's great.
Cool. Cool. And Royce, does he always work with Steve or does he have his own gig as well?
So, which Steve, my brother, or more Steve Brown from Three Way?
Your brother.
So my brother, we have a decent working relationship, but at the same point, my brother likes to do things his way. So we
Yeah.
normally just, you know, my dad works by himself to a large degree. We all kind of work by ourselves.
Cool. You're all kind of similar. It's like you all understand, like, just stay the fuck away. Don't tell me what to do. I got my own shit. Like, I know how to do this. Like, it's gonna be fine.
But at the same point, still being able to crush something if it comes to a teamwork effort, you know?
Right, right. That's cool. That's a cool element that you have these like ballers to pull from. Um, And then my next question was going to be surrounding the three way. Like, that's sort of Royce and the other Steve's baby, like whatever. Um, how are you around this three-way concept? I interviewed Royce and Steve. It wasn't the best interview because it was like I had some technical issues and stuff. It was a little early on. I need to revisit those guys and talk about the three-way. Are you on board with the three-way? Is this a system that you adopt? What's your, because Royce was coming up he was like making his own three-ways and shit and throwing them up in the corners. We can touch on this real quick. What's your play on the whole three-way system?
What's So what's my play on the three-way system? I think it's a fantastic system. I
Okay.
really do enjoy it.
Why do you think it's a fantastic system?
Why do I think it's a fantastic system? Not just because my dad made it, but
Right.
there's been a lot of innovation involved in the design. Just the
Yeah.
amount of work and trying to get the papers right, trying to get the angles right. It's a product that has spent an awful lot of time thinking about the small details that you don't understand unless you put yourself to the wall for as many years as my dad did.
Right.
So he's put an awful lot of his ingenuity and know-how into this. So I can
Yeah.
definitely, I can definitely agree that what he's done with that product it just makes life that much easier to do three ways, So
Sure.
it makes things easier. I've installed so many of them myself.
Yeah.
But what stops me from doing it, honestly, from using it myself, is not because I don't think that the product is good and
Right.
really fantastic. Is so much as just when I'm there using the three-way, doing my three ways, it's easy. I just box them out and carry on. But
Yeah.
I can't beat the time in which it takes to put them in. They're super fast.
Right.
It's really, really fast, and it's really, really sharp.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fantastic product. I don't know what else to say about it besides
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic to be able to have a product that's as versatile as it is too. So
Yeah.
I think it's cool the way that the way they promote it is more like guidelines rather than this is something that you absolutely must do in order for this product to work.
Right.
It's a versatile enough product that you can use it in a lot of different methods that you can I think there's honestly ways to use that product that haven't even been brought to the table yet. I was out with Steve at a Timber Mart not too far from where I am here. And so I've done a little bit of the work in the actual booths,
Yeah.
and we definitely had some wonderful reception at the booths. Like just working, it's just a Timber Mart outside of Lakefield, Ontario, in Kingdon.
Okay.
So I was there the whole day, and nobody there was looking at it very skeptically or kind of like trying to smash it or anything.
Right. Right. Right.
The sales at that show, I mean, trying to get a product sales from showing things it can be difficult sometimes, just from showing how a product works. You can be as enthusiastic as you want to be, and in the end it just comes down to whether someone understands the product enough to give it a whirl.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of people that came out to that were like a mix of contractors, do-it-yourselfers, and homeowners.
Okay.
So what I was happy about was every single one in that demographic or at least stopping to have a look, touch the product, check out the pamphlets, and watch, which is
Very
honestly
cool.
very cool stuff when you're trying to get a product going.
Yeah. Yeah. They were next to the Fresco booth at AWCI Build 23 show. So I get to
That's
hang out with
right.
those guys, Wolfgang and those guys. A lot of
Oh, that
fun.
would have been so much fun to be at.
Yeah, yeah, we had a ball. All of Sean and the Columbia dudes and Cam was there, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Build 24 should also be a good time. Are they going to have a booth at Build 24?
I haven't actually had a whole lot of time to sit and or even talk to Steve about his plans about what's coming up, or even with
Sure.
Dad,
Okay.
But these are very good questions. Now I'm thinking I have some more questions to ask to find out what's going on,
Sure.
but I don't see any reason as to why we don't want to be involved in any trade show. It's a contact sport. We got to get as
Yeah.
many contacts as possible.
Just money. Just money, dude.
Exactly. So I think that resource is the only thing that would stop anything from showing up about three-way at any given show. It just
Cool,
comes
cool.
down to the flow.
Yeah. We don't have to talk all about three-way. That's kind of your dad's deal. I'm sure you're proud of him. And Steve, uh, you and your bros start out working with Royce. Was that like by choice? Did you consider going to college? Can take me through your first sort of years in the trade, and then we'll get into maybe how you split off onto your own.
Um, so how we ended up getting into the trades was very much like, I think it's a very common situation with blue collar dads is just like, look, you've had a lot of fun during the summers. You're 14 years old. Let's get a job under you. My
Okay.
dad has always been a big supporter of listen, understand and have a job. And I think that really evolves us to be able to start young in a trade or whatever. I did consider college. I did want to go to college.
Okay.
Um, there were some things that kind of made things a little bit interesting where college is concerned. We moved around a lot when we were young. You
Okay.
know, we spent a lot of different times in 3 different provinces in Canada by the time we were 14 years old, right? Just going
Yeah.
back and forth, seeing dad in the open because we originally came from BC, right?
Okay.
So in BC, we would things changed. We ended up having to move to Calgary. Things changed again after a little bit of time, and we ended up in Ontario,
Okay.
right? So it became the easiest method of achieving. It didn't start out as something I wanted to do, but after enough time, I really enjoyed the opportunity to have a job and get used to making money and have all that kind of stuff right out of high school, which is a big deal for a kid.
And
I
you
wanted
jumped
to
in,
be,
you jumped in working with Royce right out of high school.
yeah,
Okay.
right out of high school, I jumped in and had a job in summers from 14 on.
Okay.
So I did have goals. I wanted to do paramedic school. I wanted to be an EMS.
Yeah.
I wanted to do that and I wanted to help people and heal. But the thing is you got that just that just didn't come through. It didn't come through. It was something I wanted to do, but I ended up here and I'm
You
very
s-
happy where I am.
you seem pretty young, Dan. How old are you?
I'm 40 years old.
Oh, okay. You got a baby face.
Yeah. When I was 18 years old, I was 12.
Yeah. And you could always do the college thing. You could always go back. Have you considered that falling back and maybe doing night school or getting a degree on the side? Has that
You know
has that
what?
occurred to you?
It did a couple years back when I was like 33, 32, 33. That was something I was looking at. But then I met my beautiful partner and that happened. And I'm very happy. And I have a daughter and a stepson now, and I'm a full-time dad, and it's a good place to be.
Yeah. How old's your daughter?
My daughter is 4 years old now.
Oh my gosh, congratulations. And
Thank
and
you
the
very much.
stepson. How old's the
Yeah.
stepson?
My stepson is Canny. My stepson and my daughter just had their birthdays here in January.
Cool.
Mhm.
Cool. Nice. And so all of a sudden now you have a family. Crazy how
That's
that
right.
works, huh? It's pretty
Yeah.
cool though, huh?
You know what? It's an experience that I wouldn't change for the world. It's an experience that changes everything in your world. It really does. And I'll tell you that I honestly believe that I matured as a person in ways that would not have happened if it wasn't for kids and a partner,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Just kind of like going back for a second, Nick, talking about how there's some really good stuff on the other side of feeling uncomfortable.
Yes.
I really honestly feel that this is a very similar situation.
Oh yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, yeah. It's people are like, "Am I ready to have kids?" Or it's kind of I have a friend who is like, you're never going to be ready. You just got to do it." And it's kind of like that. It's like,
I feel that way.
you just have to if you're considering it, there is no right time. You just do it and like deal with the consequences later, you know. Because
Like
it's hard.
so many things in life though, Nick. It's like, we're here for how long? So just get in and do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we only regret the things we don't do.
On your deathbed, are you going to be like, oh, I'm so glad I saved $100,000. I'm so glad I have $100,000 in my bank account and this large house and my Lamborghini. That's so great. No, you're not. You're not thinking about that stuff. You're thinking about family. You're thinking about, I really went after that thing in my life that I wanted to do. I went after it. I did it. I can go and die happy. It ain't gonna be long before I'm like laying in my deathbed and the last moments of my life are coming up upon me. And I can think back on my life and be like, I did it. I fucking did it. Or I can be
Fuck
like,
yeah.
I should have did it.
You
Those
know,
are two different schools.
and that I should have is a painful thorn after a number of years.
Oh yeah.
You just that little tiny I should have in your mind there that just poisoning everything. Give me a no, we
Yeah.
gotta do things when we're here.
Yeah.
We gotta
Yeah.
do things when we're here. We gotta market that product. We gotta
Yeah.
spend that money on getting that forward. You know, we
Yeah.
gotta do the art, we gotta do the expression that we have in our hearts. We do.
That's right.
We have to.
Yeah, I'm super proud of your dad for jumping into those waters as at an older age. People are like, "Oh, I'm 60, I'm 70, I'm done. I got nothing left." And it's like, "No.
My dad has
Anytime."
always been an idea man. He's taken a couple cracks and he's persevered. He has done a
Yeah.
number of things where he has tried an innovation in the past. And you know what? He's circumvented so many different things, the ideas that he had about himself trying to go through. You know, he did a great job. We tried to get another product to go, but ultimately Wider Pockets dealt us a hand. It was flush mounted vent systems, flush mounted.
Okay.
He had his hands in there, right?
Okay.
We had some
Yeah.
beautiful prototypes and we were moving that forward too.
Okay.
But so I applaud my dad, and he was like he was in his late 50s at the time trying to rock that out too. You
Nice.
know,
Yeah.
he's always been an idea man that way, you know?
Right.
I think he's hit a home run with this three-way one now.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so how many years or how much time do you spend with your dad before you're like, I gotta go out on my own, man. I'm tired of the way these guys are doing it. I gotta do it my own way, Dad. I gotta forge my own path.
You know what? I stayed with dad till my late 20s,
Okay.
almost 30. So it's been about 10 years now that I'm on my own. I
Okay.
stayed with dad because I really believed in what he was doing, and I appreciated the skill set that custom homes were giving me, you know? But I eventually needed to go off and do something else because I
Sure.
needed to learn. I needed to find out if what I had as a skill set was going to cut it. And, you know,
Yeah.
as does everybody, we need to find out for ourselves whether we can flex and actually fly, you know, whether we can fly, whether we can do it.
Yeah.
And I was comfortable to a large degree, and I didn't want to be uncomfortable. So, and eventually I had to be, you know, I had to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like being an entrepreneur, running your own business, it is a series of being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Like, that nobody's handing you a paycheck anymore.
No,
You
no,
got to
there's
learn
no
you got to
guarantees.
hustle.
Exactly. You gotta beat feet. You gotta hit the pavement. You gotta do some talking, build
Yep.
some relationships.
Yes.
And you know, that takes confidence to be able to even put yourself out there to talk to contractors, you
Yeah.
know, to be able
So,
to say, hey, I have something that I think you're really going to enjoy. But I took a more quiet approach. I took a
yeah.
more, okay, well, give me this job and I'll let you know what I can do based by what you can see.
Was it difficult because you had Royce and Steve and you got these guys out there, they're working or whatever, and you're like going off and was Steve on his own at that time as well?
Oh, my brother became independent many years before I did.
Okay, so he
Many,
was
many years.
like he was ready to get out on that skinny branch early
Yes, he
on.
was.
So
I think he did.
he was inspiring to you as well.
Yeah, it was. It was to a certain extent. Well, how long am I gonna sit here and have things provided for me? You know, how long am I gonna sit here? But no, I eventually was. It almost feels like life came and said, "Nope, time's up."
Did
It,
your dad was your dad pushing you out of the nest in that regard?
well,
Or
my dad's never been that way though. He's always
he
been like,
liked
"Yeah,
having you. He liked having you there.
well, I was a useful member of the team. It's not like it's not like I was dead weight that was being pulled around. I was doing my
Right, right.
I was doing my job. He was very happy. I reached one of the top finishers on his team at one point, one of the
Whoa,
top
whoa, whoa.
finishers
What does that mean?
in his
How do you?
custom team.
Okay, he's got a little team, and there is a top finisher category on your team that you can strive to get to.
Yeah.
Okay, walk me
All,
through.
all of the people that I grew up with, these tradesmen were unbelievable.
Yeah,
Unbelievable tradesmen to work with. And to have the opportunity to work in custom homes, I knew that I was going to learn something there that I wasn't going to learn in production. So
okay,
I was happy to work along tradesmen of all sorts, Irishmen, Polish,
yeah,
French, all sorts of crazy talented people.
yeah,
And it just felt to me like I had some wonderful mentors here.
yeah,
So, and the one thing I know is after doing martial arts for as many years as I did, you always grow stronger by how stronger the people are that are around you, you know?
yeah, yeah.
So I saw an opportunity in it. So it wasn't just me just looking for an easy ride either. I also had complete confidence. My uncle, my dad,
No, but what
um,
does that mean, top finisher? Was it an actual thing that people aspired to get to in this company?
well, you know what? It was more of an idea or a concept that I
Okay.
saw
All right.
that
You don't
God
wear
was
you
appreciating.
don't get a hat. You get a special hat on the crew that says top.
I kind of wish. No, no, there
You can
wasn't
make one.
anything like that.
You gotta make one.
But no, it was just like because my dad had so much skill. He handpicked and analyzed every one of the members on his team. You know.
Oh, okay. So this was an honor that your dad bestowed upon one of the members of the team, top finisher, and you reached that honor.
And kind of like just what I saw that they were doing,
Okay.
just based on it was almost like I was paying attention to the social aspect and seeing how they were with those guys compared to the
Okay.
other guys. Not that anybody was bad, it's just you could tell that some guys so he did
Yeah.
have an idea of what he wanted for a finisher, and the idea was to be a top finisher, and the way I see it is versatility and professionality no matter what the case, being able to do as many possible outcomes, and these guys, they never daunted by any task. And personally, I think it's like, so if you get stuck in a little closet with 900 different types of reveal or whatever, and these guys are going in like it ain't no thing, like a walk in the park, and coming out the other end clean and smiling, that's when I think that you're a pretty damn good finisher.
Yeah.
And these are the
Okay.
kind of guys that I was exposed to. Wonderful guys.
So you branch out on your own. Do you call it blue steel right away?
Yeah, I had that kind of figured out because dad's like, listen, we're going to get you a corporation so you're a subcontractor. We're going to get that sorted out, and
Okay.
we're going
All
to,
right, cool.
yeah,
Your dad was like, no, you're staying by me. If you go out on your own, you're on your own. Not none of that competitive attitude. It was like, no, I'll help you out, get started. Like, how cool is that?
he's always been an open guy like that. He's
Yeah,
always
like
been like that.
a
And
mentor.
and really honestly, it's like it's so cool to have the opportunity to have a teacher as good as he was. And of course, I can't deny that I was a good student in paying attention and listening and watching. But you got to ask yourself that question. Are you really succeeding if your students are only just as good as you are or a little bit under? The way I see it is if you're a successful mentor, your mentee or your person you're training is exponentially better than you.
Yeah, your little birds learn to fly.
That's right. You want to teach them how to fly as far and as far and as high as they can, you know?
That's a wise
I'm not
statement.
saying that I'm like really that much better or I'm just saying that I learned a lot of really unique skills and I'm happy to have them.
Well, you're saying that Royce is a phenomenal mentor.
Exactly.
And which makes perfect sense. I've met the guy. He's just a not only an extraordinary finisher, innovator, but a very nice guy. Okay, so you go out on your own. Are we, I hesitate to ask at this point, are we just a hand finisher or do we use the tools, Dan? You use like the box tools, the bazooka?
Tools.
Okay.
No, right. I use the tools.
Okay.
I'm a hand taper though. I am a hand taper.
I was getting this like super like hand finisher vibe from you there. You know, I always kind of hesitate because there's no right or wrong way to do it. But these dinosaurs that are just hand finishing, no shame in it too. I give them a lot of shit as well. But like these tools, they do speed up the process quite a bit. And it's always an interesting conversation.
No, I hand tape. I do.
Okay.
But
why?
I don't hold any fiction or fantasy that I can cover a lot more footage with a bazooka.
Okay.
It's an expensive tool and I grew up using a super taper. So that's why I use it.
Shut the fuck up. You're a slot box guy. Awesome. And
it's some of the best slot boxing you've ever seen.
I like how you hesitate. You're like, I'm just going to nod so that our listeners don't know what I'm answering. If you're watching on YouTube, you saw the nod. Now, I never did the slot box, but my take on the slot box is that like, dude, you're reeling out 250 feet of tape in that box. You ain't stopping once, dude. You can go 250 feet. Like, no matter how messy you get, that's pretty fast. You know, if you have a wiper, you're like busting some serious footage with that slot box.
I've covered a lot of distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As antiquated as that system is, it's pretty efficient. Like, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is my dad, Royce, he used it for many, many years, Nick. Many years he used that. But when he's looking, but he saw a group of guys come in with the super taper and knock his time by 2 hours. And he's using, and he at the time was the one of the top, again, let's just say very proficient with his tools. Very proficient. And I honestly believe that you can do a hand taping system that isn't messy, not completely messy, that isn't too much weight, that's quite easy to deal with, and does a very good, clean job. And I just think that if Royce felt that he wanted to teach me the bazooka, he would have. But it was super taper, and I'm happy. But at the same point, I'm not opposed to learning that tool.
Yeah. So, Aaron, we got to get Dan a Columbia Predator. We got a newbie here. We got a newbie here that's just going to crush it. We're going to do a blue steel video. Dan's going to have a Columbia taper. That's funny.
Show your first day what it's like watching a hand taper graduate to a different system. It's going to be an interesting go if I do ever pull that off. I'm interested in getting a little more time. But you know what? I always just kind of felt like I don't know, you tell me. How do you feel about the possibility of mechanical failure with that? That was always one thing I'm concerned with is mechanical failure,
Mhm.
where a super taper, it's
Yeah.
it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. It always
Yeah.
seems to work
Yeah.
versus if something goes down on your taper.
Yep. Well, in your instance, if something went down on your taper, you throw the fucker in the closet and you go back to the super tape. So,
Yeah, yeah.
if I was a bazooka guy and I didn't understand the super taper system and my bazooka fails, I gotta fix it because I'm like stuck with that system, or I pull out my banjo and finish the rest of the job with a banjo, which is probably the slowest. Although I've worked with several people that are extremely proficient with a banjo, very fast
Banjos
with
are,
that tool.
you know what? I think you can make something out of any system that's provided for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's not a bad idea to go outside of your comfort zone and use the tools you haven't, and don't be afraid to learn. And I'm not afraid to learn. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm also,
You would be a good candidate for, because I know there is value in these tool companies getting people that have never used a tool the tool, because part of the marketing is like, look, like you can learn a new tool and here's how, and Dan did it, he's been finishing for a long time, so but you use the boxes and stuff.
yes, I do. Yes,
Okay.
I do. Flat boxes are incredible. I've used
Yeah.
them for my entire career. Flat
Okay.
boxes. Yeah.
And
I,
what brand are you using?
North Star.
North Star. Okay.
Yeah, the multi one box, the interchangeable one.
Okay.
Yeah. So I like their system. I really like the multi one finisher. So it's a really cool system. The ability to change out your blade distance, the blade width is a super cool, innovative design, and I've enjoyed running the box from day one. I was using Columbia boxes before then, the Fat Boy Columbias,
Okay.
and they are wonderful tools. They were wonderful tools. They pretty much they held me and kept me going through the entire time that I was working in the union and during the entire time that I was working on my own.
Okay.
The and I still have the original Columbia pump from that. And
Cool.
yeah, I don't I don't think that you can really beat the flat boxes when it cut troweling 6 feet versus push and go. You can't do that. You can't beat that.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Very cool. We didn't get into the union days very much. So you were with Royce. You and Royce were in the union, or how did that work?
Yeah. So very interesting. It was a bit of a smaller foray before I ended up getting back in with a group of people that are wonderful, and I'm just happy to be here. But you
Sure.
know what? I did 5 units in the union. That's what I did. Five
Okay.
units on my own. And that taught me an awful lot. So he worked with me on my first one just to get
What
me
does
going.
that mean, 5 units in the union?
So they were townhomes,
Oh,
three-story
okay.
townhomes, and roughly about 8.5 to 9 foot ceilings on the main, 7 in the basement, and 8.5 on the top floor, something like that.
Okay.
And then, of course, there was the big stairwells that were like 14 feet up from the stairwell, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of like a basic hallway stairwell kind of thing. It was really, what it taught me is how much you have to sweat to do what those boys do, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm coming from a place where I was established and you're given the time and the wallets to be able to handle things. There is a time constraint and there's a quota meet on when it comes to these jobs to be able to make your money as well as move on so that everyone else can, you know?
Right.
So my foray into the union was short but very educational.
Okay.
And I have a lot more respect for what those guys can do.
Yeah, it's easy to look down your nose at the union and be like, ah, those guys are just a bunch of, time farmers and this and that. And I worked in the union, and two things, like they weren't lazy. You couldn't be lazy in the union because you'd lose your job. And then they were good. Like they were like the best finishers that I ever worked with were in the union, you know. Like so for
Well,
what
I
it's
was
worth.
really actually quite happy with my result there too, because I did these units and everybody was happy with what they saw. And I
Sure.
installed three ways in these units.
Okay.
Altogether done and said 5 units, about 400 three-ways.
And this was before the three-way was a product, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was like just Royce tooling these three-ways in his living room at night.
We had a couple of them, and honestly, we had them done, and we weren't entirely happy with the product, but at the same point, I used them, and I was like still very happy, very thrilled with the results, and it limited the amount of work that I had to do in my three-ways, and that's where I noticed a huge difference in being able to save time versus hand picking three-ways, you know?
Well, okay. And so the three-way too, this just occurs to me, is a little different when you bazooka out your angles and you leave your tape short. That's a sort of a different style or method than when you're running the super taper. I feel like you can cut your corners a lot sharper and closer together and easier to pick out. Am I wrong? Then maybe if you're running the bazooka, it's easier to leave those corners short, those angles short. And it might be the three-way might be a more efficient system for people that run the bazooka.
Well, it takes an awful lot of time to be that accurate with your bazooka. It takes time. It takes
Yeah.
training to be able to
You
have all
can.
of your clang
You
move
yeah,
together.
you can. The cool thing about a bazooka, when you run that angle, it pulls. So you run your tail a little long, and you can get good at pulling that tail. Like, because this other side that you're starting at, you're pulling your tail as you pull that tape across. So you have to be good at knowing, so you're always going to have like, 3 inches to an inch distance. Whereas with a super taper, you can cut it right
You can get it
perfect
in there right tight every time. Yeah,
every time.
no,
Yeah.
because I'm right in that three-way, right? I'm not putting a
Yep.
tool in there.
Right.
So my hat's off to those guys that do that.
Oh
Like it's
yeah.
no problem, man. We could mention any number of tapers in our community that are doing
Oh
it,
yeah.
you
Oh
know,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
these guys are fantastic.
I love watching it too. Love watching a good bazooka runner. It's cool to watch.
No, it's smooth. It is really nice to watch. I really enjoy that. I really
We
do.
we got Dan Wessel, a young baby-faced 40-year-old out of Pickering, right?
Yeah,
Pickering?
Pickering, Ontario, just an hour east of Toronto.
An hour east of Toronto. Maybe I'll get up to Pickering someday. Son of Royce, but certainly has carved out his own niche in this amazing industry. Pearl of wisdom for the drywall community. What do you got?
From me,
Yeah.
Pearl of Wisdom, try as many methods as you can. With as many methods that are afforded to us as tradesmen, you might be happy and proud of the way that you've learned, and I definitely am proud of the way that I've learned. But the more things that we know, the more ways that we can tackle our job, it just has that much more effect on how solid we are as finishers.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks so much for being on the Drywall Podcast. It wasn't such a big deal, was it?
No, it was wonderful to be here. A couple of hiccups, a few nerves here and there, but
Yeah. Do you listen to the podcast? Have you listened to some of these?
yes, I listen at work. I listen
Okay.
at work because I know some guys throw on the Joe Rogan podcast. I throw on the Drywall podcast or whatever's pertaining to my career. Like,
Yeah.
I like how many different people are available. So it's usually music or someone in my field that I'm interested in listening to. When you asked me to do your show, I started paying attention and started really listening then. And
cool.
I like I paid attention. I was listening to the Brawley's Dad not too long ago.
Okay.
Just last week. It was really cool. And I really like your podcast. It's really cool.
Thanks, man.
Really
yeah, you have a wealth of shows and episodes to get through, man. There's a lot of good stuff. I mean, the one with the three-way is great. We've got Wolfgang, we've got Aaron and Elliot with Columbia, we've got Myron Ferguson. I mean,
big names.
Drywall Shorty, all the women in drywall and some powerhouses. The one with Teak Interiors is fantastic. Real good ones. The early one with Joe Koenig is really good, of Trimtex. Like,
yeah,
he's a kick.
That would be good. That would be good to check out. I have some recommendations of places to start now.
Oh yeah. The early ones are kind of funny because they're a little different. The format's a little different, and I was trying to figure it out through probably 20 episodes, early on. Yeah.
Yeah. As someone, trying to pick my presence up too. When you're not used to doing this and you don't really know how and you don't know what you're doing, it's a very interesting sort of world to fumble through and try and get. So this is another thing I'm always interested in learning and trying to figure out how to make a social media presence. That's one area where I feel like I'm having a bit of a struggle with.
My recommendation on that is similar to the podcast or anything. You just have to start putting out content. You think that people don't want to see your stuff. Like even doing an ice bath giveaway, I don't think people want to see that. But they do. And the ice bath just kind of makes it interesting. But even as I'm doing it, I'm like, nobody wants to see this shit. But the reality is when I see other people making content, you don't know. Not everybody is hitting the like button or commenting, but they're watching just the same. Like there's a lot of videos or stories that I watch and I don't comment or like. I try to like a lot of things, but I'm watching all the time. You're watching all the time. You know the content that's getting out there and you don't like everything that you see. You take that into consideration when you're creating content. Just because they're not posting on it or liking it, or you get one like, doesn't mean that there isn't 100 people watching your video, especially a Blue Steel video with some music to it. You could even put a blue filter on it or something. I think it'd be fabulous.
Working for the weekend sanding video.
Yeah.
It's a good rough draft. It's a good rough draft.
My encouragement to you would be to just, start there, make that video and see what happens. Dan Wessel. Cool, man. Thank you so much for being on the Drywall Podcast. We'll keep in touch. We'll talk soon.
I absolutely love it, Nick. Thanks for your time today. Thank you.
All right, man. We'll talk soon. Bye.
Take care.
And to help take us out, all the way from the bowels of hell, the Dark Lord himself, the devil, once again.
Thank you very much, Nick. I really enjoyed listening to Dan's story and his insight. It was very inspiring, and I hope that we can stay in touch with him. Well, more you than me. He doesn't want to know me in any capacity.
Thank you so much, Devil. That is the sweetest thing I've heard today. I really appreciate it. Maybe one of these days we can talk about how you and I met.
I would really enjoy that, Nick. And only if there's time, I certainly don't want to impose on your podcast.
I don't think it's a big deal, and I think people might be curious about where you came from and maybe some of your history.
Oh, that sounds good to me, Nick. For now, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and thank you for letting me be a part of this show.
Absolutely, Devil. I think that you get a bad rap, and maybe if we dig in a little bit, we can find out more about you, and we can illuminate some light on the story of the devil one day. Thank you so much for joining me and Dan on the podcast today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This episode of the Drywall Podcast was brought to you by Columbia Tools. They don't just talk the talk or walk the walk. At Columbia, customer satisfaction is their battle cry. Their top priority is giving you a grade A experience from start to finish. Got a question or concern? They're ready to tackle those head on by phone, Facebook, Instagram, any way you can get a hold of them. So be sure to check them out. Check out their YouTube channel, lots of detailed how-to videos there. Their maintenance videos are kind of the secret sauce, and their kick-ass videos will keep your tools in prime condition. Thank you once again for joining me on the Drywall Podcast. I know I said that already, but I'm saying it again. I really appreciate it. Join me next Friday for Ahmed Khalid from Triple T Taping. This dude's a badass, and he has over 10,000 followers. But until then, I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and remember, keep drywalling.